So I thought I'd do a quick video talking about and showing how to change your plugs on your stock batteries or on your stock ESC, or making an adapter really, because a lot of these aftermarkets come with a JST plug, or depending on the scale, they come with different Dean's plugs and stuff like that. Anyway, the easy fix for this, in my opinion, is to be consistent with all the plugs you're going to use. And if you're buying a lot of aftermarket batteries, you want to probably go with the one that you are buying the most of. And in my opinion, I use a lot of JSTs on a lot of my different RCs, so I'm going with JSTs. So what I do is I'll take the stock battery and I'll cut off the original, which is this guy here, and I'll put a JST plug on my stock battery. I also like to shorten up the cables a little bit on some of these because I don't want them too long. Again, it just depends on the rigs they're being used in, but I like less wires. So we'll go ahead and chop it off and redo that. And essentially we're going to be doing the same thing here that we did here, which is just soldering them together. So I'm going to show you that a little bit. But another thing just to be aware of, when you do cut these, cut the wires one at a time. Don't just cut them with scissors, because you could easily short out the battery. Cut out one wire, make sure it's safe, cut off the other wire, and keep them apart until you're able to get the new wire soldered in and sleeved with the shrink wrap, or the heat shrink, excuse me. So let's go ahead and do this. The first thing you're going to want to do is tin the ends of your wires. Tinning the ends of your wires is essentially pre-soldering them. You just basically want to heat up the wire a little bit and get some solder on there, so that when you try to connect them, you're not sitting there trying to get solder to go into the wire. Okay, now generally when you're soldering, the idea is to heat up the point you're trying to solder to, not the solder itself. Okay, so we're heating the wire and then touching the solder to the wire. This is very easy to do. And again, you're just trying to get a little bit of solder on the wire ends, so that when we go ahead and touch the two wire ends together, all we have to do is touch the soldering iron to them while they're touching, and they will adhere to each other. They will solder to each other. Okay. Just make sure it's smooth on all of them. You don't want any lumps. Okay. And also, we'll usually twist these wires up a little bit. You want to kind of make sure they're not just fraying out. So you kind of get the point there. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and solder them together, and you'll basically just align them. This part's, I know it seems obvious, but it makes your life so much easier when they're already aligned and you're not trying to use your hands to hold them together or to get them to touch. You kind of want them already putting pressure on each other, and make sure they're straight. You don't want them crossing like this. You want to make sure they're flat. And once you're good to go on that, you usually can just quickly touch the wire and you're together. Let's see, they weren't totally aligned, but that's okay. Okay. All right, so they're nice and flat. There's no crazy bumps in there. Okay, and we're going to do the other one, and then we're going to go ahead and pull off this plug. This plug is easier to undo than this plug. You basically lift these little tiny tabs up, use like an X-Acto blade or just something very thin to kind of lift these tabs up. Don't break them off, but just lift them up and pull on these and they'll slide right out. Now you want to remember which side they go in, because if you put them in backwards, you will fry your ESC. Keep track of which side the red goes in and the black goes in. All right, and we can also, there's another way to check before we plug it in or put them back in on the ESC. And that is that when the plug goes in, black is towards the antenna, red is towards this, all this. So think power to my servos, red, black antenna, black side. Same as the motor, black, red, okay? And actually, on this one, funny enough, this cable did not come from this battery. And you got to be careful on these too, and on these when you get them. Basically, you get a whole pack. I'll link to these on Amazon. But generally, these are going to be correct, but you just want to, again, you don't want to fry an ESC, so you want to be 100% sure as to where your wires are going, okay? Obviously, your red and black out of your battery is your red and black. That's not going to get messed up. But once it gets to, a cable, it could be switched. And this one was actually for another RC, just a cheapy one. I didn't realize I grabbed it. I have two. So look at this. You can see the little mohawk, right? Look at that, they're backwards. So again, be very aware. This one for the SCX24s, these plugs, again, they go in like this. The Mohawk's on the top, goes in like so, and you've got black, red, black, red. That is the correct way. So if I was to put this in here as it stands, this would fry the ESC. Okay, so again, be sure you're going correct polarity. And so it's not a big deal because we have to pull these off anyway. And I'll show you how to, again, you pop these little things off when we'll do that when we heat shrink this. Because I would have, so on a longer wire, you would put your heat shrink on before you solder it. Problem is, if the heat shrink is this long on here, and I slide it down, it's going to be right next to my solder. And what happens is this wire gets a little warm, and sometimes your heat shrink will shrink before you're able to move it. So I generally like to just pull off the plug if it's a short one, and then put the heat shrink on and heat shrink it. And we have to do it anyway on this one because it's backwards. So again, always check that stuff. Don't just assume that it's correct out of the package, okay? Because even these, like, who knows? There could be a manufacturing issue and they could be swapped and you're in trouble. So I know I've dwelled on it. I just don't want anybody frying their ESCs. If you did fry your ESC, the stock one, there may be a way to save it, or if you plugged in your motor wrong, that's another thing, plugging your motor into your battery into your motor side, that will easily fry your ESC. So I have a video on that. You can look that up. Oops, I fried my ESC. But you can actually save these combos on the version 1s and buy an aftermarket ESC and still use this for your stock receiver and transmitter. All right, so I did not do the best job here. I kind of rushed, but it's fine. It will work as long as you're not breaking, as long as you're not poking out any big blobs. You're fine. Again, we're going to heat shrink it, and this is just to make a quick little adapter. So the idea here is that this will plug in, and then your battery will plug into the adapter, and then all your aftermarket batteries will plug in. This does not actually. These are balance cables, and I think this is for a drone, but this is not the correct. None of these are correct. So again, this one already had JST on it, and we'll just plug this in and good to go. Now, don't plug them in until you've heat shrink them, obviously. If they touch, you'll fry your battery. So again, to pop these out, all you do is you put an X-Acto blade underneath here, kind of lift on the plastic and pull kind of while you're doing that, and these should pull right out. Simple as that. And you just want to be careful not to break them. That's why I'm trying to be overly cautious here. Okay. Then you're just going to slide your heat shrink over. Make sure you have complete coverage. Okay. You want to make sure nothing is showing, obviously. Then I just use the back part of my soldering iron to kind of go over it. Some people use a lighter. Okay. Don't want to melt it. You just want to get it warm. All right, heat shrink's on. Connections are good. Now we're going to take our plug. Again, make sure we know which direction it's supposed to go. Mohawk goes in like this, and we know it's going to be black, red, black, red. Okay. On these, there's a little, probably very hard to see, little hook on the top there. Okay, that's what goes in on the side that we lifted. So we're going to put the hook to the top, and the hook basically catches on the plastic that we lifted. Okay, there's again, hook on the top. Push it in, and then we're good. Worst case, especially on some of the JST plugs, you can always take your X-Acto underneath the little hook on the wire itself and kind of lift that up if you bent it down. Because some of the plugs, when you undo them, you need to push in to pull these apart, like a JST plug. So if you were to pull the JST off, again, you're pushing down on that little middle hook, and that's what lets you pull them out. And when you push down on it, if you push too hard, you might bend them and they won't stay in. So if they're sliding in and out, all you got to do is put your X-Acto underneath there and kind of twist it up and bend it forward. So when these are outside of the JST, you can slide it under, like I said, and just kind of lift the little metal tab hook. And then when you slide them in, they'll hook and they will not come out. Okay, so make sure everything lines up right. Again, don't plug it in all the way, just plug it in enough. Okay, yep, our mohawk on the inside here, our tab, and we're red, black, and then we're red, black all the way through, right? And then if we were to plug this in, we're not correct. Oh, well, we're not correct, right? We would have fried it. So we need to make sure, okay? Always double check before you plug everything in. Test fit everything. That is not correct. We ended up putting them back in the same slots. And I can tell you, it is very easy to do that. This is an example, right? This is a perfect example. And part of that, I'll tell you, it has to do with, you're like, I'm going to plug these in because it's the same direction, right? And I just go like that. No, these are actually going to twist. We actually twist these, okay? Because we need black, red, like this. All right, so you can see we are black, red, black, red. Again, black to the antenna, red powers the servos, right? It's a good way to remember, and we're good to go. So now we can plug in our aftermarket, or we can plug in our converted stock, and we're good to go. Okay. I also showed a lot of soldering stuff and wire shortening for the servos. So you should check out my servo video. These Emax servos come with a super long cable, and we want to shorten it down to something about like that. So I'll go ahead and put a link up over here, a video card, and you can click on there to check out how we shortened our servos here. There's a staggered method because these wires are so thin, and you don't want to make them super thick by heat shrinking each one. So we kind of stagger how we cut them and stuff. Anyway, go check out that video, it's pretty good. So again, now this adapter you can use on any of your SCX24s, or just leave it in, make one for each of your trucks, and then you don't ever have to worry about changing it. When you get a new ESC, so even like this is just a kind of a Amazon cheapy one, but its power adapter is already a JST. So that's one of the reasons we like JSTs. There's a lot of stuff already comes with JST on there. Anyway, if you ever want to decase one of your ESCs to make them much, much smaller, this is a stock version 1. We decase it, remove the on and off switch, and then use it strictly for, well, this one's used strictly for an external ESC. You can also leave your power and motor cables on there, the mounts, or we add cables onto them. Check out my decasing ESC video to talk about that. And I hope this helped. Again, this is very simple, but a lot of people question, well, how do I plug my battery in, my aftermarket batteries? And again, you don't have to get crazy with it. You can just make an adapter. And even if you didn't cut your stock battery, you could make this adapter. You'd have to buy these, right? You have to buy this and the female ends here. But you can make this adapter, still use your stock battery, plug it straight in, and then your aftermarket battery you would have attached to the adapter here. And you could just plug it in and leave it attached to the batteries. Swap it every time you want to do a different one of these aftermarket batteries. Anyway, all right, I hope that helped. Please subscribe, please comment below if you have anything you'd like to ask or point out, and I hope you have a great day.